I'll be referring to the manosphere in this video as the young manosphere. It sounds dumb, but I don't care. The young manosphere is usually seen as a large, convoluted, and potentially dangerous mess. But I'm going to be dissecting the factions that exist today inside the young manosphere. This is going to be encapsulating young men. Primarily, the majority is going to be Gen Z, but a little bit of the youngest millennials. And thanks to how society and technology is rapidly moving forward, already portions of Generation Alpha are moving into factions that would be considered outside of the quote-unquote blue pill. And so that brings us to the blue pill. What is it? By my definition, someone that is quote-unquote blue-pilled is simply someone that follows the status quo of their surrounding environment's trajectory. I understand that usually when you're referring to someone as blue-pilled, that they are quote-unquote a beta or someone that's unbased. But I want to take this more seriously, and I'm going to try to keep the definition as generalized as possible. I also believe that there's more complication and nuance to calling someone blue-pilled or red-pilled. I think there's definitely a pretty large spectrum in between the two. And anyways, that brings us to the red pill then. The red pill, in my definition, is someone that recognizes the status quo's view on life in modern society is supposedly wrong, and thus they need a new system to follow. That's it. Obviously, something that isn't the status quo can be a lot of things. So the whole point of this video is to elaborate on the varying factions that exist within the red pill space, the left of the blue pill. We're first going to be examining the largest faction that exists within the young male red pill, and that would be the self-improvement faction. The self-improvement faction embodies the idea of developing and upgrading one's life. Self-improvement practitioners follow a lifestyle of, as the name implies, self-improvement. They believe that through foregoing instant gratification and emotional impulses, that they can develop themselves to a point that they can be proud of and be successful. Generally, self-improvement is agreed upon by the red pill as the most moderate and perhaps practical faction, depending on who you ask. The problem with self-improvement, however, is it is a massive faction, as I've already said. It is really broad and thus requires this faction to be split into two sub-factions to be better understood. Those being general self-improvement and holistic self-improvement. General self-improvement is someone that understands the concept of being in control of one's life and becoming better, but for usually very specific applications. Usually along the lines of becoming more productive or developing a quote-unquote toned physique. It follows an androgynous framework with low polarity in their behavior or mindset. These guys usually have really great grades, work relatively hard, and approach bad habits with quote-unquote balance. 1 hour of video games, for example. And of course there is a spectrum within this subgroup, as they move leftwards towards holistic self-improvement or as they move rightwards towards the blue pill. And that is why I put general self-improvement in between the red pill and the blue pill, because members of the general self-improvement hold values between both pills. It's regarded as the most moderate form of red pill, although general self-improvementers themselves have deep disdain for the red pill. So holistic self-improvement then is applying self-improvement to all facets and parts of life. It's definitely more radical than just installing a few Chrome extensions to get better grades. Holistic self-improvement believes every system in one's status quo of life can be upgraded. Physique, strength, social skills, finally the ability to talk to girls, finance, mental health, community, routines, no-fap, cold showers, cold turkey, learning how to cook foods like turkey. Guys in holistic self-improvement usually were formerly depressed, skinny fat, or fat guys that would be fantasizing about some long, drawn-out romantic life with the girl in math class who asked for a pencil. Holistic self-improvement can best be embodied with phrases like being your best self, being a high-value man, or a man of discipline. Their goals usually are long-term and macro in scale, built around creating a great life for themselves and their future families. There's a big emphasis on traditional values, or at least a compromise between the modern values of today and the traditional values of the past. Holistic self-improvement practitioners, they're usually devouring the content of creators like Hamza, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, etc. And a good alternative perspective to view the differences between someone that is on general self-improvement and someone that is on holistic self-improvement is most young men that engaged in self-improvement before Hamza blew up on the internet would be regarded as someone that would be a general self-improvementer. However, after Hamza just took over the internet, then all over the self-improvement space, I should rather say, anyone that's a young man and would be on self-improvement would be regarded as a holistic self-improvementer. And of course, again, there's a broad spectrum within the holistic self-improvement. Actually, I should say that every faction, there's a spectrum, because that's the whole point of this model in the first place. General self-improvement, they hold values that definitely would be branched away from the status quo's view of men by a pretty moderate distance. And from a purely objective standpoint, I think holistic self-improvement is definitely one of the most optimal and best factions that exist in the young manosphere, just because it legitimately keeps the average teen or young adult from becoming monsters. Let's talk about the Neo Red Pill. I made this up. At first, it seems the Neo Red Pill should just be part of self-improvement, because it seems like it fits. But I think the Neo Red Pill can take itself as its own faction. And I call it Neo Red Pill thanks to the explosion of figures like Andrew Tate across media. It's the Tate Pill. The Neo Red Pill takes the concepts of holistic self-improvement and fully maximizes and upgrades the individualist take, vehemently throttling away from the status quo's view on life. The Neo Red Pill believes in living one's life to its absolute fullest through any means necessary, through social Darwinistic acquisition, doubling down on acting in one's own interests for their goals. Yet again, a spectrum exists, but understand even the merged region between Neo Red Pill and holistic self-improvement is already far away from the status quo's view on life. The qualities of male hierarchy and one's pride are placed far above holding more collective/communitarian values that can be seen with self-improvement. To a Neo Red Pillar, life is more, as I've stated, socially Darwinistic. It's a struggle. The goal of life is accumulating wealth and woman. This cliche holds very similar views to the classical Red Pillars of old, that being the 2000s Red Pill forum communities. Media and reaction tends to conflate the Neo Red Pill and holistic self-improvement together, but many members of the holistic self-improvement would consider the Neo Red Pill to be unethical, while many members of the Neo Red Pill consider the holistic self-improvement to be too compromised and weak. It's no doubt a very aggressive faction that contains a lot of energy, but with the arrests and cancellations of Andrew Tate, Sneeko, and all their communities, it's rapidly shrunk in population just as fast as it rose. Nonetheless, a large remnant of the Neo Red Pill exists, and will no doubt re-emerge in the future due to the current socioeconomic state. Media can say what they want about people in the Neo Red Pill, but at the end of the day, the whole and most young men unfortunately can and will be stirred and filled by the ideology of people like Tate. So until things change, another Tate is going to spawn in, and another wave of young men that believe in some Matrix conspiracy are going to be born. Let's talk about pickup artists. The PUA faction is a small faction in the young manosphere. I placed it residing next to the Neo Red Pill because they hold very similar values on their individualist takes on dating and on having relationships. And that's the point of pickup artists. It's primarily a relationship-based faction that's focused on getting hookups with as many girls as possible. It should be noted, though, that PUA is a faction that is more popular in the aggregate manosphere, that being for the older millennials and Gen X. The young manosphere's pickup artists are a faction that doesn't really exist, in my opinion. It's a kind of exists with Neo Red Pill, but kind of not. PUA, thus, is a dying faction in the young manosphere, if it even really existed in the first place, because the role that this group offers has been conquered and co-opted by the more mentally healthy self-improvement faction, with its more refined interpretation of dating. So the next faction we're going to be talking about is the classical Red Pill. Red Pill thought, or classical Red Pill, is a fringe faction that exists amongst young men, while it's more moderately sizable amongst the older populations in the aggregate manosphere. Classical Red Pill is my grouping for the original remnants of the Red Pill movements that existed back in the 2000s. They don't really exist anymore in the young manosphere at all, or actually they really never did exist, because various elements of the classical Red Pill were just collected and co-opted into the other groups. Basically, this is where concepts of polarization and re-establishing masculinity formed. It's considered very outdated and dead as a movement since it only functioned within the contemporary period that the older millennials and Gen X lived through in the 2000s. The classical Red Pill nowadays is amongst the aggregate manosphere and is mostly split between PUA and MGTOW. Entrepreneurs. This faction extends into the Blue Pill to the Neo Red Pill. Entrepreneurs fully cement themselves to accumulating financial resources through developing their own businesses. They, of course, act and think modestly to substantially different from the blue pill, with usually the most driven young entrepreneurs deep into the red pill. A goal-oriented and powerful productive work ethic are requirements to the mindset of these young men. Entrepreneurs thus exist inside the self-improvement faction. I especially see this faction growing more and more inside the self-improvement space, since Gen Z is getting older and must become increasingly more self-reliant, and with a growing number of young men attempting to develop themselves financially without relying on older existing institutions, I believe this faction is just going to completely co-opt with self-improvement entirely. For example, many older Gen Z and younger millennials that are deep into self-improvement would consider themselves entrepreneurs. Not all, though, of course. Give it 5 or so years, and I really think the entrepreneur faction will eventually merge with the self-improvement faction entirely. But as of now, the majority of young manosphere self-improvement is about fitness, nofap, and getting girls. MGTOW. Men Going Their Own Way is a faction that exists within the Red Pill that is quite distinct in their ideology from the rest. It's a very small faction within the young manosphere, definitely being more popular in the older millennial and Gen X groups. MGTOW establishes that the current dating market or social environment of male and female dynamics is inherently unhealthy to outright dangerous for men. Thus, the life of a man in MGTOW is to drop out from the dating market, to drop out from any kind of interactions with women, and live a lifestyle without them, meaning any other pursuits in life are what should be endeavored upon. They don't believe in dating, and certainly not marriage. It's a very purely reactionary cliche. And the reason why MGTOW is nearly non-existent amongst the young Red Pill is because of the fact that most young guys simply like women. They, while acknowledging that society's views on men in the dating market is difficult, believe all of this stuff could be circumvented with just a little struggle, and that being through self-improvement. Self-improvement offers a path to have a genuine relationship with a girl, and that simply is something young guys want, according to the self-improvement ideology. And I think you could see by now the recurring pattern within the young manosphere, in that self-improvement kind of just conquers and imperializes the entire space to the point that all the other factions are pretty small fringes. Okay, so that should be everything. Yeah, I think that's all the factions that exist within the young manosphere. There's no more. I can assure you I promise you that there's not any more factions. We got them all covered. It's already quite complicated, so we are done. All right, have a good night. The Black Pill. The Black Pill is the farthest left faction in the young manosphere, and is generally regarded outside the Red Pill, being the most radical for its thought. The Black Pill is a moderately sized faction amongst young men and is built around the theory of Black Pill. This theory exclaims that looks or genetics are the basis of one's experiences in life. One's height, face, skeletal frame, etc. determines what lifestyle you will settle in, and you will stay in. The Black Pill is wholly against all factions to the right of them, from self-improvement to Blue Pill to Tate Pill to pickup artists, etc. Members of the Black Pill generally regard any faction to the right of them as cope for young men. Black Pill as a whole is factionalist and fairly disunited. It's mostly to do with arguing on theory. Black Pill could be distinguished between two broad groups, the moderate Black Pill and the radical Black Pill. Moderate Black Pill are akin to looks maxers and believe that and I'm going to get into looks maxers later. While they believe that Black Pill theory is true, one could moderately improve their appearance or personality to access higher standards of living. I like to usually regard the moderate Black Pill as the objectivist Black Pill. Meanwhile, radical Black Pill, or the nihilistic Black Pill, believes that everything to the right of them is cope, including looks maxers and moderate Black Pill. No amount of Red Pill action or Red Pill mindset could change a man past their genetics, unless they cannot improve their dating life and social circle, according to the Black Pill. Your life, according to radical Black Pill, is quote-unquote over, and unchangeable if you were unattractive. The radical Black Pill is the bottom of the barrel for moving left, any further left, and you start to reach ideologies that are only hyper-fixated on the individual self and their specific worldview, which only holds value to whatever self-induced rationale was used to create it. Usually, the radical black pill allows already, well, I should say pretty much all radical black pillars are mentally unhealthy guys that feed into echo chambers and radicalization spirals, culminating in unfavorable circumstances. Radical black pill obviously believes 100% in black pill theory, that it is completely infallible. Again, black pill is very factionalist despite being supposedly following the same theory, that being the extent to which black pill theory is considered truth, or the extent to which black pill theory is applicable to all situations and social dynamics. Black pill infighting occurs on a variety of issues, such as whether or not height or face is the most important factor in calculating a man's ability to attract women. The inclusion of whether women can become black pilled is another hot topic amongst black pillars. Black pill infighting is difficult to map out, as new factions are created frequently, with supposed neo-black pill thought always arising by some 4chan user. Black pill as a whole is usually conflated by media and reaction to be the same as the red pill, when anybody that is in the red pill or black pill, or at least someone that has graced through the young manosphere as an observer, can tell you that both are legitimately different factions, on a theoretical everything basis. While both are against the status quo, they have definitively opposing worldviews and beliefs on what should be the new establishment of being a young man. For just a constant example that you really don't even have to look far to see, both always can be found in the comment sections of YouTube videos, viciously clashing against one another in debates on a daily basis. Okay, I'm done.